Hey folks, Mr. Dell here. We are looking at just a learning log, and it's basically an opportunity for us to review what needs to be, what elements are needed for a completed graph. So I'm taking this from CPM course 2, and this is section 2.3.1. And 2-14 is your learning log, making complete graphs. So it says describe the elements needed for a complete graph, include a sketch of the graph that shows where these elements should be located. So when we think of a graph, X and Y coordinate system, right? So you know that axis here, the vertical axis is the Y axis, the horizontal axis is the X axis. And the graphs that we've been dealing with in this up to now are more of the graphs that you see like this, that you're talking about that portion of the graph, which is really all that is this coordinate. It's the first quadrant, not coordinate, quadrant. It's the first quadrant, right? So we only are dealing with positive values. That's why we've been graphing with this. If you were to completely continue those axes, right, they would continue on and you'd have the XY axes, right? So we're just dealing with quadrant one because our data that we're graphing has all been positive data, right? So when we have our graph, right, we have our axes, our X and Y axes. Not only do we want to label their X and Y axes with an X and Y, but we also want to have labels. So that's another thing we want. We need a label, right, all of um, each of the axes, right? So we have to label what is this represent, and then not only what it represents, but what units. So sometimes it's hours, sometimes it's time in days. This as well, right? So you also want to have a label right here. So we describe what each of those axes represents, what the data represents. If I'm comparing hours to money, right? So I would have my hours, my label hours right here, and my money label here, right? So I want to have my labels with what they are along with the unit if the unit is not already part of the label. Hours is a unit, money, dollars is a unit. Okay. So label. The other piece is you want to make sure that you title your graph. You title your graph. What is it, right? So are we, what in this case we're comparing, this could be Andre's bank account, right? Whatever the data represents, you have your title above your graph, right? Whatever it is. In this case, hours versus money could be somebody's bank account or somebody's uh, working time they've worked or money they've earned, their wage. So that could be our title. The other thing is a accurately labeled scale, right? Our scale needs to be accurate and labeled. So another consistent. So if we're going to go by fives, we have 5, 10, 15, 20, right? So we're labeling our scale. So scaled, labeled, scaled axes. I'll put that. I'll get a little bit more details. Accurately labeled, scaled axes. So our axes, each of the axes are labeled as well as they are um, accurate, right? They're if I go by twos, I'm showing that it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or whatever the case is. So you've got them labeled consistently. Okay, those are a couple items that we definitely want to have, and then clear data points. I would say would be another one, right? So making sure I can see, oh, if one of the data points is 10-4, it's clear and possibly even labeled and clear data points, right? So that is the point 10-4, and I can see it, and it's labeled 10-4. All right, those are some elements that you would want in making a complete graph. Okay.